Well, welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of December 11th, 2024 at 3 p.m. And I'd like to give a special welcome to Sadira Rodriguez, Director and Curator for the Sunshine Coast Art Council. Sadira is here as a delegate from this council, and later in the agenda, she will be giving us an update on the 2024 Sechelt Arts Festival. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to your presentation. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge, in a moment, that the District of Sechelt is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation, whose presence continues to enrich this community. So as we move to point 3 on the agenda, I'll now call this meeting to order and ask if there are any conflicts to be declared from council. Okay. So seeing none at this time, I would like to move actually to add an item to the agenda. This item is recognition of long-term staff member of the District of Sechelt, who after 25 years of service will be retiring. Any discussion? So moved. Thank you. Second. All in favor? Thank you. So we're carried. All right. And now it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome and recognize Anne Watson. I can only imagine, Anne, that after 25 years with an organization, that this is only half of the story. And so, but I do want to share some of the highlights of the wonderful dedication that you have shown to the District of Sechelt. So for more than 25 years, Anne has dedicated herself to preserving the unique history of Sechelt. As the first and only employee of the Sechelt Community Archives since its inception in 1997, Anne transformed a large founding donation into a professionally run community resource. From its humble beginnings in a back room of the Sechelt Public Library, Anne oversaw the growth of the archives to 3 times its original size and its relocation to a larger space at the Trail Bay Center in 2020. In 2023, BC Heritage awarded Anne with a Lifetime Achievement Award to recognize her incredible contributions. We are so grateful for everything that you have done, and on behalf of all of us, the District of Sechelt, the community of Sechelt, thank you. And we wish you a very happy new beginnings, 3rd act in your retirement.
I'd just like to thank this current council and all the staff in the district office for their continued support over, it's been almost 28 years. I can't believe it's been that long, but for all your support over the many years, and especially Siobhan Smith, who has just been an amazing help to the archives. We really couldn't have functioned as well without her. And there are a few other people. I have had many volunteers, and I would like to acknowledge them. They helped, especially one, Janet, who is my computer guru. And she did the website, put all our photographs up and various other documents. And without the public donating their records, we wouldn't be here, the archives wouldn't be here today. So I'd like to thank them as well. And now I have other people, I had 5 people in my mind: the district, Siobhan, the public, my volunteers, and lastly, but not least, the Sunshine Coast Museum and Archives. They have been a great help and support over the years. And fortunately, one of their staff, Ali Bartlett, is taking over the archives. So they're in very good hands. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Support.
Almost beat me in my Y career. Oh, I think about 3 years you actually did. So there you go. Fantastic. Enjoy. All right. Thank you. And moving on now, we're going to move on to our delegations. And I would like to welcome our, just a moment, let me get my notes. I'd like to welcome Sadira Rodriguez to give us an update on the Sechelt Arts Festival. Welcome, Sadira.
Thank you, Councillor Donna Bell. And okay, can you hear me now? Perfect. Thank you very much for giving me a moment to give you an update on the Sechelt Arts Festival. I'm the director, curator at the Sunshine Coast Arts Council, and a year ago, the District of Sechelt put out an RFP for the Sechelt Arts Festival, and we were very fortunate to be able to take over the contract and to be able to run it. So what I have for you are a few images to kind of just share the extraordinary things that we did this year. After 20 years of the Sechelt Arts Festival being guided by Arcadian Productions in a beautiful way, we put forward a proposal to turn the festival into an art and ecology and climate change focused event. And what we decided to do over 2024 was try and understand when it would best land in the community. It had always been taken place in October, and as many of you may know, October is an incredibly busy arts and culture month. And we were seeing a decrease in attendance as a result of just a competing event. So over the course of this year, we ran a series of events that actually followed the rhythms of the seasons as a way of trying to understand where it best sat. And so what I'd like you to do, and I've got some images to show you. So what we ended up with is a festival that began in March and ran through, and in fact, the closing event is happening right now at the Sunshine Coast Arts Center, and I invite all of you to come down. We've had 40 to 50 kids come down every day for the festival, so it's been really, really a kind of extraordinary thing. So without further ado, this is the new look and feel for the Sechelt Arts Festival. We worked with Edmund Arcio to revitalize the look and feel. While we call it a thematic, the Salish Sea, we're actually calling it the Salish Sea as our companion for thinking. So rather than simply making work about the Salish Sea, we're trying to understand how we can think alongside, and that's everything from climate change to the more than humans that inhabit the sea, to even the current coastal flooding mapping project that's undertaking, sort of trying to think of how all of these things interweave and what role art plays in that. We launched the festival in March with a big project called Go Fish, which I'm hoping some of you had a chance to come and see, which was with Nettie Wild and Scott Smith. And this caliber of work, which is a work that was produced by the Comox Valley Art Gallery as well as the National Gallery of Canada, is the caliber of work that we want to continue to bring in for our community. And the support of the festival really allows us to do that. So this installation, which looks at the herring spawn up at Hornby and Denman Islands, became a real pivotal work for the launch of the new festival. We had about 1,300 visitors. We had 10 elementary school visits. We had artist talks. We did a number of things, and this was a real kind of profound opening for the for the festival. And I know that a number of you had a chance to come down and see the work. We were able to provide access to Nettie Wild to high school and elementary school students. So to be able to work with an artist that just won the Governor General's Award, we were pretty lucky that she had won that award at the same time as we were sharing this work. And so, and then she was incredibly generous to come down and spend 2 days with young people in our community, talking about the work, talking about how it was made, talking about the role of art in talking about ecologies. We then launched a project. So one of the core aspects of the festival is to center Indigenous ways of knowing. So not just Sechelt and Squamish, but really acknowledge the histories of Indigenous ways of knowing here. So we hosted a 2-day series called Mapping Swea. And this was led by Jessica Sylvie and Robert Joe, and shared the maps, the Seashelf Swaya maps that really follow the waterways. The waterways and the Salish Sea were the core movements in our community. And so this involved both the sharing of maps at Capilano University, as well as site walks in different locations. And the artifact of that is a publicly accessible timeline and mapping project that anyone is welcome to now go and visit at Capilano University. So seeing that as a real legacy for our community, wanting to build art that creates that kind of ongoing legacy. In September, so this was part of our experiment to try and understand where something would land best, we hosted a big waterfront concert and procession at Mission Point as a way of celebrating the equinox, and when the salmon are returning from the Salish Sea up into Chapman Creek. And this is some images off the procession itself, where we had about 300 people that joined us for the procession, which was fantastic because we were doing this sort of really quite experimentally, and it was led by Gerardo, and it told the story of the raven returning the sun. And we landed on Mission Point Beach itself, where we were met by Andy Johnson to tell stories from the Seashelf perspective about that particular site. We then showcased shakuhachi flute players and Japanese drummers, as well as taiko drumming. We really created a cultural celebration of the various artists that are living on the coast. So these are all artists that live amongst us, who come from cultures where the equinox is a very important moment in theirs. So over the course of the night, we had music performances, and we also created a kind of hands-on making station. And it was pretty extraordinary to see how people engaged and how people stayed. And over the course of the night, we had about 300 attendees, and we supported 23 artists from our community to be paid and to be part of this event. And we believe strongly in partnerships. So for each of our events, we partner with different local organizations. And in this particular case, we partnered with the Rogue Art Society. We currently, as I mentioned to you, up until this Saturday, and this Saturday is the closing party for the exhibition, and please, you're all welcome to come. It's an all ages party, and we've turned it a little bit over to young people, so we know a bit what's going to happen, but we're also going to learn a lot. But we have this beautiful exhibition called Our Salish Sea, which has 8 artists from the coast, including Powell River, who are all contributing work that tell different stories about the Salish Sea. And as I mentioned, I put this presentation together before the final numbers. I think we're now at 15 class visits. So it's been a really extraordinary thing that's been taken up by our schools, and sort of seeing the variety of ways in which art can become quite meaningful. And so here is just a snapshot. I did not talk about every event. I would have needed a bit longer with you, but I just pulled out some highlights of some of the things that we did. But thank you to the District of Seychelles support, we were able to provide this range of programs. Moving forward, our plan is to move the festival to coincide with the equinox. It seems to be a really beautiful moment. It's a quieter moment in our community in terms of arts and culture events, and then to lead out through and do events into the fall where we can then engage our young people with some of these critical ideas. At the end of the day, what we see is that art has the role to help us think through difficult ideas, and for many in our community, climate change is a pretty major thing. And so how can we bring languages of love and care and joy to encounter these difficult ideas? So that's my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That is incredible. Council, any questions, comments?
Thank you for your presentation. I love it. I love that so many classes are attending. How do the numbers look compared to prior years where you've had it closer together? Was there an increase in attendees, or?
There was a tiny little bit of a decrease. I think last year was 3,400, but that also was because the festival coincided with the art crawl. So you had that huge bulk of good attendance that happened at that moment. And
Yeah.
this year we were quieter with going out. So we just know we've built the momentum, particularly amongst our teachers and schools, that we're already getting requests for bookings for next year. So we see ourselves being able to go back and actually increase. Well, next year's festival will be bigger than this year's.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you again. What you do, the work you do is just incredible. And I think it's a great direction to move forward in. It's particularly the fact that you're involving so many young people is so critical. You know, giving that learning experience as well as that experience to be involved in our community. And it's exciting to see that there's more around the climate change. If anybody engages and grabs onto climate change, we know it's our youth. So they have a lot to teach us. Well, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Right, great. So we're moving on. We don't have a large agenda tonight. We're moving on to our next agenda item, which is a business item of 5.1, which is our parking vending pilot project or program. And we have before us a report, council, and will someone, Lucy? Yes, thank you, be speaking to this. Great. Thanks, Lucy.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Council. This report aims to present a new parks vending program pilot for Council's consideration. The District of Sechelt has provided 3 mobile vending locations for several years: Davis Bay, Kinnickinnick Park, and Trail Bay. In 2023, Council instructed staff to initiate a consultation process with businesses, mobile vendors, and the general public to gather feedback on mobile vending, with over 300 people responding to the survey conducted from September 24 to October 6, 2024. Nearly 95% of respondents supported increasing food truck opportunities in the District of Sechelt. Respondents expressed a preference for all year round vending, with vendors remaining at the same location, offering food, drinks, ice cream, and product rentals, i.e. paddle boards and kayaks. This supports the district's strategic plan by enhancing the local economy, creating lively public spaces, and elevating the overall visitor experience, thereby fostering a vibrant downtown core. Recommendations. Today, we present several recommendations designed to shape the new pilot program and expand opportunities for food trucks within the District of Sechelt. Increase display areas. Currently, there are 2 at Davis Bay and 1 at Trail Bay. Increase vendor types. Introduce a day option. Currently, we have no day use option. And create 2 vending seasons, summer and winter. Currently, we only run April 1st to September 30th. Thought I'd give you just an overview of Davis Bay. Currently, we have 2 vendor pads at Davis Bay. There is 1 stationary vendor pad option. We do have power at Davis Bay, so a 50 amp and a couple of 22 amp power and water as well. And a proposal for Friendship Park would be 3 stationary food vendor pads. We do have power sitting at the spot, again 150 and 120 amp with water. And just give you a few stats from 2024 and 2023. So in 2024, there was 2,538 hours of vending time at Davis Bay, and you can see there was a little bit more in Davis Bay in 2023. Just speaking to some vendors that we had, 45 sales a day roughly, employing 1 full-time staff, and the other vendor had 100 to 130 transactions on a busy day and employing mostly part-time staff. And looking at Friendship Park, again, you can see the stats on the side there. So 2837 for 2024 and just over 3,000 on 2023. And again, averaging 100 hours a week with 3 full-time positions for that particular vendor. And they had 100 to 130 transactions on a busy day. These changes will allow new display areas and combinations of vendors to be trialled before permanent bylaw changes are drafted. Staff will evaluate the park vending program pilot throughout 2025 and will report back to council by September of 2025.
Super.
Any questions?
Thank you, Lucy. Awesome. Very good. Lots of detail in the report, so thank you for that. Council, questions? Counselor Shepherd.
Thanks for that report. I guess, sorry, I didn't see in the material, sorry, through the chair. I guess one question, are there any additional costs for utilities to take advantage of the expanded number of vendors?
We currently do have power that we need for both spots and water there for Davis Bay and Friendship Park.
Thank you. I am generally in favor of this. It's a great incubator process for retailers to see if there's interest in their products. They're good locations. I think it's overall, it's part of reactivating, which is what the Downtown Business Association wants to do, areas. So I'm general support. Thanks.
Counselor Inkster.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm glad to see this in the sense of there was some challenges over the last number of years. So a pilot program would allow us to, in a sense, test some ideas. So I'm glad to see this. I'm also glad to see additional pad and or display areas in these areas. And I hope that the challenges with the power and the water is easily solved. I guess that's the District of Sechelt that will be doing those things, adding the power, I'm assuming. I'm not sure what the challenges mean. Do we have a solution for it? I'm just a question though, with this particular proposal, we're hoping probably that the vendors are complementary to one another and is that part of the program? Just one question through you, Chair. Yeah.
Absolutely. We will make sure that we would not have two burger trucks together.
Okay, and or other examples of.
So actually, so in both spaces, Davis Bay, we wouldn't put something that was in competition with a local business that was selling food.
Yeah.
And Trail Bay, there is nobody nearby that's selling food. So we would make sure there would be maybe a meal and a beverage, or a meal and a dessert that would put down at Trail Bay. So no competing vendors.
Okay, great. And Madam Chair, I'm assuming with all these proposals that the sites are obviously as part of the contract, just a tidy site always and things like that were as part of the contract, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yes.
But that will be put out in the express for
Okay.
interest. So in their contract, we'll have all those guidelines outlined for each individual vendor.
Any other questions? Yeah, Counselor McLaughlin.
Thank you through the chair, and thanks to staff and everyone for this very extensive report. Gives you a lot of different ideas and things to consider. A couple of things that came to my mind that aren't part of this recommendation, but something we may want to look at is somebody was suggesting the idea of a vending lot, where we could have a place where numerous vendors could be, so that there could be a bit of a critical mass, and people could have a selection in a very close area of food choices, which I think is hard to do with the way it currently is set up. We don't really have any urban design, as far as I can tell, in our parks plan that really integrates any of this kind of vending services. But anyway, people do like to be near parks to go for a walk after they eat something, and it's all part of the experience. I am a bit concerned, though, that especially near the village, that we have so many vacant commercial spots along Cowrie especially, that I don't really want to see those just be permanent. I would like to see some way to integrate everything so that it helps support the commercial areas along there, so that we can create a vibrancy. Hopefully that would extend all year long, but if those shops remained vacant, I think that it's almost counterproductive to introduce new places for food retail. So even though there's just, I think, a few spots recommended here in the recommendation to try, I hope that we can continue to think about how we can integrate this more formally, and think about also consulting perhaps some of the residents. But I think if we carefully do it, we can avoid issues with the residents. But I mean, it could be kind of a slippery slope if we don't. So I would just caution that we are careful with how we proceed with this. Thank you.
you. Yeah, I think just commenting on that as well, I'm wondering too that you'll likely have some conversations with the Downtown Business Association, which I think you're in regular contact with, which certainly gives us an idea of what are the needs downtown in terms of some of those services. And has there been any conversation around that?
There has. We have
Yeah.
spoken with the Downtown Business Association, obviously about current restaurants that are down there and everything that we have had seen come through for vending programs. There is no, what's the word?
Right.
Conflict.
Yeah.
There's no conflict.
Great. No, and I think that's, I mean, that's a very important part, is certainly to not have the conflict. But on the other hand, having these vendors, I'm in support of it. I think anything we can do to bring people into the downtown core again and add that vibrancy. And we've been talking about, what are the things that we can do to make our downtown core more vibrant? And I have certainly seen some of the amount of people around, some of these vendors and walking away with big smiles on their face. And I think that that's a great thing for us to offer. So I'm supportive of this as well. Councillor.
Yes,
Lester.
thanks. Yeah. Thank you. The Boulevard is a good example of an area where we could have multiple, we could have multiple vendors. I mean, there's other areas have challenges, but that's an example if we get serious about what we're going to do about that area, and maybe that could be seasonal, but we'll see. I mean, that's an area. And in terms of competition, I always wonder about that too, but most towns are doing this other than us successfully. And of the people that are here today, I know that the two of them that I know that are here, that they don't sell things that as far as I can tell, other businesses are selling right now. So that's sort of where it works in Seashelt's context with those that have been very active in our local scene. One of the concerns I have, Madam Chair, is how do we connect our waterfront to our downtown? Everyone knows that there's something called a highway there that cuts off people from easily crossing over back and forth to go to those food vendors, and then come back into the downtown. I think they're either down there or they're not, and then they take advantage of the food vendors. I'd love to see a plan that would somehow directly link our downtown to our waterfront and more of a flow than people staying on the waterfront or people being downtown. I'd love to see back and forth. Being downtown a lot, I don't see a lot of the back and forth. I either see people on the waterfront or people downtown. It'd be good to see the people going back and forth quite regularly. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think that's one of the comments that we'll put into your thoughts, which I'm sure, Lucy, did you have a comment around that as well, or?
I actually just
Look,
wrote it down.
You have it on there.
I've already written it down. But
Perfect. Thank you. No, great. Thanks. Councillor Shepherd?
Actually, that was, sorry, Madam Chair, that was my comment as well. If it's worth spending some money on signage along Cowrie or other areas to notify people, visitors, of what's going on in the waterfront.
Great idea.
And also, I second point, it's probably revenue neutral. I don't know I know it's not seen as a revenue generator, but just a quick question financially. We're covering our utilities. Is there any money that comes out of this to sort of general revenue? Thanks.
Are you able to answer that one?
I
Lucy?
can,
Thank you.
yes. So permit fees for a vendor are $200 a month, and the $50 utility fee for electrical does cover the electrical. We've pulled some stats for Friendship and Davis Bay, and that does cover. And then obviously there's a refundable deposit that they pay as well.
Full cost recovery then, essentially.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I support it because it's a prototype and I love trying new things. Let's see if we can figure out how to make it even better. I do want to hear from the business community on including the Chamber and the SDBA because, of course, Davis Bay is not part of the downtown business. I'm curious how you see working with the winter, and this is more of a maybe drafting, but you're talking about the recommendation that It'll be evaluated over 2025 winter and summer, but a report coming in September.
We were hoping it would start pretty soon.
Right, right.
For the winter season. We've had a lot of call of people phoning in, looking for the 1-day option or 2 days or 3 days
Mhm.
to be able to put their units up, especially around Christmas time.
Right.
And we would have some stats on that if that was feasible.
Okay, great. So maybe you'll get, with our support, you'll get going on this quick. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Rowe.
Thank you for the report, generally in support as well. I see, these are the two obvious locations, but we also have something up at Kinnickinnick that are we looking at trying to do anything there? Is that one of the options for people? If there was fall tournament, for instance, could they rent it for the weekend or come in for the
Absolutely.
weekend?
So we're in contact with our field users. So when they do have an event, we would put them in contact with our vendors. And there is a pad up there they can use as well. It's a little out of the way than downtown, but they still have the option to vend through there.
And somebody asked me about Hackett Park, but that concession is Rotary, right? Can anyone else use that concession?
The concession is rentable. It doesn't offer very much. There is no stove in there. There's a fridge and a countertop barbecue, but it is rentable. It would be more of a multi-year rental. I think we could look at that in the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right. So we have some recommendations in front of us, and council, what would you like to move? Ms. Mayor Henderson?
I'll move recommendations 1 and 2. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Seconded, Councillor Shepherd. Okay, all in favor? Oh, okay. Discussion?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I'm just wondering under 1A, where we talk about increasing the number of display areas and existing vendor locations. We have more specific information on page 8 about the locations, and I wonder if that will be included in recommendation so that it doesn't get lost and that we don't end up with some different outcome. Because this recommendation is not specific to what's further in the report on page 8.
Councillor Shepherd.
Okay.
Mayor Henderson.
Well, either one. I think we can rely on our staff to well, first of all, I don't want to limit it and be too prescriptive because I'd love somebody to come up and say we could do something at our operations center or on a beachfront somewhere. So for now, this is a pilot. That's an important point for me. We're trying something. Let's throw the net wide and see what we can, what creativity people can bring. Word to my neighbor.
Councillor Shepherd and then Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have this somewhat the same comment. I'm not worried that, we approve this with the language as is and suddenly we've got 15 vendors. So I'm happy with the recommendation, the way it's worded. Thanks.
I was just going to point out the word existing is in the recommendation, so increases the number of display areas at the existing vendor locations. So that infers that it's Davis Bay and Friendship Park.
Excellent. Thank you. So we're good as is at this point. Okay, thank you. So we have further discussion? We have.
Yeah,
McLaughlin?
sorry, yeah, thank you through the chair. Well, I'm a little confused because on the one hand, we're saying we want it open so that these vendors could be anywhere. And then on the other hand, we're saying, no, it's only at Davis Bay and Trail Bay. So I'd like to know which is it, because if it's just going to be what's stated in here at Davis Bay and Trail Bay, fine, I can support that. That's a pilot. This is what's identified in the pilot. But if it means based on this pilot and this recommendation that we're going to possibly open it up to anything, I think that's not appropriate. So I would like clarification on that so I can decide which way to vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I can answer that. We obviously have vendors that are applying for Davis Bay and Friendship Park. and they will be yearly vendors. So they will be your stationary food vendor and your stationary vendor. We also have the option of having our roaming food truck vendor and our roaming vendor. So if you have a roaming food truck vendor and perhaps you were selling ice cream, you could go up to Friendship Park, and maybe you needed a day use permit for that, and that was why we asked you for a day use permit.
Well, I mean, what it says here is that 2 display areas and 1 small display area at Davis Bay with certain power. And then it says 3 display areas at Trail Bay. So if it's going to be much more than that, I think I would have great concerns about that. But if the pilot says these are the ones we're going to stick to for now as part of the pilot, fine. I just don't want it to be, it's still kind of not clear. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So currently, right now, we have mobile vendors and we have general mobile vendors. We just reworked the wording. For general mobile vendors, a general mobile vendor would be a roaming vendor. It's somebody that's not stationary, so they're not sitting at a pad in Davis Bay or Friendship Park. So these guys will be traveling around. The same with a food truck roaming vendor. The locations for Davis Bay, currently, this is what we are looking to change for Davis Bay. There is only 2 vending pads at Davis Bay right now. We would like to have 3. There is only 1 vending pad at Friendship Park. We would like to have 3.
Clear. Microphone. So we, now we have a motion on the floor and we have a seconder. And so I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Lucy, very much for your comprehensive report. Appreciate it. Yeah, we are finished with the agenda items as presented and published by the staff, so I'd like a motion to adjourn. Second? We're done. We are adjourned. All in favor?